the vital role of native trees and vegetation that often been neglected and overlooked. And this happens especially when we tend to design our own garden, when we tend to design our own habitat, that is the urban area. As we know, our small villages have turned into the towns and towns to the cities, and now cities are becoming metros. But through this journey, with the increase in population, we are also putting a lot of pressure on our natural resources. So climate in return, or rather with the geological sciences, formed rock into the soil and then the hydrology. So both these very important factors as soil and hydrology plays very vital role for the evolution of the plant. So small insect, those are evolved with the plant, and this evolution takes place in several thousands of years to even lakhs of years. And this is very important for every sort of soil's fertility, porosity, and the water holding capacity. Moment we remove this ground vegetation and put some monoculture over there, naturally we are changing this soil root zone area. We are changing the mineral intake and exchange with the root and the, or rather, living system and the non-living, that is soil. So we need to ensure the ravines, riparian surfaces by not allowing any dumping on that. We need to keep those areas out of our, riverfront development and lake beautification part, because those things are bringing all these alterations to our ecosystem, which are not wanted for the healthy ecosystem. I am here to talk about the importance of native vegetation, the emphasis on trees, the vital role of native trees and vegetation that often been neglected and overlooked. And this happens especially when we tend to design our own garden, when we tend to design our own habitat, that is the urban area. As we know, our small villages have turned into the towns and towns to the cities, and now cities are becoming metros. But through this journey, with the increase in population, we are also putting a lot of pressure on our natural resources. When I talk about natural resources, the majority of us do believe in the water, availability of water, fresh water, soil to some extent, but they never realize that vegetation or biodiversity is also very essential part to run our ecosystem, to run our ecosystem healthy. And those are being the weakest areas wherein we don't address. Our sciences is all about to bring out the comfort in our day-to-day life. But while doing that, we are putting a lot of studies and technology advancement. But we are also putting parallelly a lot of pressure on our resources, availability of minerals, and then degrade the soil, degrade the forest, cut out the hills, and then in the want of minerals, we often see that those natural terrain, those hilly terrains are being flattened. And there are several such studies to talk about a great menace that we have done to many such natural areas. And that one is still continuing. It is not that we have somehow restricted ourselves by defining the protected areas, by describing and marking our wildlife sanctuaries. We don't, in fact, there are several incidences wherein we are denotifying them. We have started denotifying in the name of population increment or increase in the population and our demand for the natural resources and natural areas. See, forests we cut, and then we have the agriculture that we know, to which we call our civilization. And that has occurred all along the rivers and wherever water sources are there. So natural areas, those were there, have been degraded, and then we have turned into the agriculture. I would like to bring you to the notice that native plants that we have, they have the relationship with that of soil, local hydrology, and on long even climate. So climate in return, or rather with the geological sciences, formed rock into the soil and then the hydrology. So both these very important factors as soil and hydrology plays very vital role for the evolution of the plant. Adaptation to the plant is another aspect wherein their genetics plays a vital role, but they also evolve, and that evolution is along with the change in the soil characteristic or the hydrology, local hydrology, or availability of the water. And while doing so, they also have to have the pollinators. So there comes the animal. So small insect, those are evolved with the plant, and this evolution takes place in several thousands of years to even lakhs of years. So wherever you find a typical sort of soil and a certain hydrological cycle, you can very well predict what would be the plant diversity, what would be the animal diversity. That is dependent on the plant diversity. So this interaction we must understand, we must respect this whenever those areas we are trying to capture in the name of our urbanization or the urban expansions. Several other points, those are related with the soil and hydrology. So we always plant the plants those we like or we design. And we just ignore those plants by calling it jungly. ये तो ऐसे ही जंगल है. So we need to care about whatever is growing naturally in certain areas because they have certain role to play in that ecosystem. And this ground vegetation in exchange with the soil nutrient increases the soil root zone. And this is very important for every sort of soil's fertility, porosity, and the water holding capacity. Moment we remove this ground vegetation and put some monoculture over there, naturally we are changing this soil root zone area. We are changing the mineral intake and exchange with the root and the or rather living system and the non-living, that is soil. So root and soil, we are changing their exchange by changing the vegetation. And this is all in the wild happening naturally with the climatic factors to which we call it succession. So certain soils you will find with the known amount of rainfall, annual rainfall. You will have grasses, a typical grasses or few grass families will be very dominant in that area. And with the change in the climatic factors, with the change in rainfall pattern, there will be serial stage that will take place. So we in ecology call it primary succession, and then comes the secondary succession, then comes tertiary succession, and all these succession or serial stages will have difference in soil moisture, holding capacity, porosity of the soil, and of course the ground vegetational change. Species will vary, and ultimately with this successional rate changes, ultimately it tries to evolve a good forest system which will be dominated by trees. And wherever trees are there, they bring this stability to the serial stage. The succession it is not that they will be completely stopped or checked, but for the changes those are occurring in say decades will be restricted to several hundreds of years with the trees. Trees diversity, if you have more diversity, more are the chances in the forest to stabilize the system. And that is how the maximum biodiversity area in the world will be having maximum diversity of the tree species and then other dependent life forms in the forest. And those systems will be more resilient. So under any such stress, like if suppose there are no rainfall for 1 or 2 years consequently, there will be death in that system, but it will be not that severe as that of in the grassland. So if you have forest and grassland, you can compare this study. If there is stress, a similar kind of climatic alterations are occurring on both the system, the forest will be less sufferer. Our connect with the plant is mainly due to their usage of the health. And as we know, we are all Ayurveda applying people. And since ancient times, thousands of years ago, we have connected ourselves with that of Ayurvedic plants. Now I'm going to show you. So these are the plants, as you can see, most of them you have seen. Next, please. I'm not going to read the utility. I wanted to show how many such plants, those are never been planted or here in our gardens, but they are growing in our grasses, all along the grasses on the ground or our ruderal vegetation we can call. Next, please, Chitrak, as we know. Next, please. In the moist areas, in the grasses and semi-partial shaded areas, you will come across several such plants. And then plant like this, calotropis, they grow in the very open and disturbed landscape. So they are kind of primary successors. Please, next. Most of these plants are herbs. Some of them are, they live for 1 or 2 more years. So they are, perennial, we can call. But most of them are available in our vicinity, near our urban areas. Even in within urban areas also, if there is undisturbed soil, you will find these plants very frequently. As audience is also agreeing with that. They have seen these plants and they have beautiful utilities also. I just wanted to tell that while designing in an urban areas, we often neglect these things and we do only monoculture of planting grasses and putting only those palm trees which are not native at all. So instead of that, we have such a large number of diversity, naturally growing plants and trees in our forest and around us. We can certainly plant those trees in our gardens. We can enjoy the beauty of those natural trees or native trees, those are around us. And they have very great role to play in our ecosystem. So ecosystem health is all about these native plants. You just will be surprised, just for the knowledge of the audiences. There are certain states in United States wherein our people tree has been banned. Ban means forest department has, decided not to allow any single sapling to establish there. Can we imagine that? With the ecosystem that we have, most of the landscape of our country is having the presence of people tree, and people is river tree. That is how it has been named as Ficus religios. So it has to do with the religion. So even scientific fraternity also has agreed upon how religiously we are connected with the people tree. And the same people tree is, denied in the United States of America, in few states. So forest department has been given the information that they should not allow that to grow. But just imagine how important that species is with the local ecosystem. I'll be sharing my observation of that tree also in the last few slides. So you will come across and you will realize how these native trees are so much important. And once we said these native trees, it is also likely that we need not take care of the soil much because they are very robust. They are growing with the natural selection. They have adapted themselves. So just availability of water many times fulfill to have such plants in our, say, backyard, or we can grow these medicinally important plants. But of course, my topic is not, to emphasize on that much. It is all about the native plants and their role in ecosystem that we are going to see more. These are all, our medicinally important plants, but they are also available in the, say, our vegetation, ground vegetation. This chitrak or plumbago zeylanica is very common herb. It grows up to 1 meter many times. It is not that erect plant, but as a undergrowth all along the river banks, you will find it growing. Yes, many of these plants, like the one that we are looking at, calotropis, it is, habitat of number of insects to lay down their eggs, because even butterflies, they prefer this plant to lay down or to stick their eggs on the leaf, which are otherwise not being preferred by the other, birds to visit. And that is how they are being safeguarded. Because of the milky latex, the plant is not being, visited by a number of birds. Otherwise, they can be eaten up by these. We have also coming across the name also. Those who are observing this, they will definitely agree what I am saying. Cassia occidentalis is, of course, it has now, grown everywhere. Many of plants, we call them as they are not native. They are coming, but they have established since several hundreds of years and they are proliferating. Several such trees are there. Even for that matter, I have one slide showing the Pithocilobium dulce, which is being introduced plant, जिसको जंगल जे भी हम लोग कहते हैं. But it has adapted to so well in our ecosystem that birds are mostly all frugivorous birds, parakeets. They do reside in the holes of this trunk of the Pithocilobium, that is jungle jalebi. गोरस आमली किसको कहते हैं वेस्टर्न इंडिया में, बिकॉज दूध जैसे आमली, इमली यानी उसका फल. सो जो व्हाइट फल होता है, इट इज स्वीट like milk. So these trees, there are records that in 1795 it was introduced, and some of them are saying also beyond that. So hardly it is 250-year-old tree, but now it has coming up, or rather it is supporting our diversity, bird diversity here. While choosing the plant, you will agree that we need to be very cautious. Many times, what has happened, for example, if I want to give another example, Prosopis juliflora, I have seen this plant all throughout India, almost major part of the country. It is not growing, say, in the foothill of Himalaya. So from that side onwards in North India, it is not growing. But rest of the things like Dehradun downward till Kanyakumari, you will find this Prosopis juliflora, विलायती कीकर, गुजराती में उसको गांडव बावल बोलते हैं, मतलब पागल पागल बबूल. So it is because of the growth is so exuberant. So it is growing everywhere. Even from say Kutch, that is extreme dry conditions on the coastal area, you will find it growing till Siliguri. It is growing in West Bengal. So all along, Kolkata to Siliguri, you will find that Central India is being captured, covered by this tree. Majority of the ravines area are being covered by Prosopis. But Prosopis, if you see in Saurashtra part of Gujarat, it is giving maximum economical benefit. Although we are concerned about the local vegetation, I have seen certain number of local plants which are very small and herbaceous there, recorded as rare things. Those habitats are gone with the growth of this tree. But this tree is also having, Prosopis is also having higher calorific value, and it has become the maximum earning plant for poor in Saurashtra. Because of calorific value of the coal even, coal also burns very well. So Gando Bawal is again giving the highest economy in the Saurashtra or drier area of the Gujarat. Most of these composite family plants, they are also helping even pollinators to feed. They offer several different habitats, and those habitats preferred by small insects to reside. And that is how all this, like, evolution is major thing to keep that interaction more and more complicated. And this is how the plant evolved along with the insect. Is very interesting thing to study. Now this plant also, we know actually several such important medicinal properties are mentioned. But you can make simple water into gel by crushing the leaves of this climber. This is also very common climber in the bushy areas. I am also to design and advocate plantation. I have done few projects for that, and I have realized that we as a society are not that aware about the beauty of our own local plants. There are beautiful plants that we have, but we never appreciate that. We like those plants which are available in the nursery. We always, praise those plants which are introduced to us. Many in India among us will not or will never know that champa we call red champa, white champa. Those are only introduced plants. Even gulmohar, we have film on that. We have all literature also available. Gulmohar is not known to our ancestors. Again, it is introduced some 150 years back or so, not beyond that. Like most of the plants, those we use for eating purpose, like potato, then several such chilies, those are introduced ones. So we must understand. You can Google for say each plant that you are interested in looking at. So you can just see that whether these plants are local or other native or exotic. You will come across that. Now most of the ravines are kavach, infested, we can say, because that grows very beautifully in the ravine area. This one is also like that, Pergularia. Jasud is also local, but we are not using that much. Still, I feel in urban areas, it is very easy to grow in pots also, and we can get the benefit of this plant. These are various habitats and plants those are there, as you can see. They are all our native plants, and they are really important. I will not be able to describe what is exact role of each one of them, because you need to have lot of experience and field work and data availability with you. But if you study only one plant or two plants, and you can get your doctorate also, because there are a lot many things those are happening with that plant. If you study the habitat, growth of the plant, its phenology, and the similar life cycle on the animals or insects, those are dependent on that. They are all incoherent. They are all go hand in hand. So to bring that awareness and realization, one has to study it properly. There are several such cross references also. Most of these plants are studied also. But then such studies I will agree those who are into this field. There is hardly, data which is available for the correlation of this to this. I am having one slide which shows that butterflies are being studied properly with the host plants. So those type of studies are now coming up, and it's a compilation of that study. That several such studies all throughout the world, and they have identified large number of species of butterflies belonging to the host plants. So that also will come across. So this is the slide that I was talking about. As you can see, few families and subfamilies that goes in some 53 number, 337. This list is available on the site that has been mentioned here. And there are almost 1600 herbaceous plants, 100 shrubs and climbers, and 300 species, tree species are mentioned that host this 337 butterfly species. So this is amazing again compilation you will find on this link. So again, the habitat that plant provide, it is also soil is very important factor. Several such, saline surface lover or salt lover butterflies often seen on the wet surfaces. The spotted parrot is usually seen sucking the honey, but at times it also comes down. And then signature spider. If you go in, say, undisturbed areas all along the water bodies, you will come across this signature spider. Now, this is giant tent spider on the bushes. You can see in the first slide that is on the left top, you have those nets, and these are all those, their tent. So each tent will have very typical structure in it. We simply cannot make that even by using kind of rope. If you try this, it is very difficult to have such type of hanging structure wherein in the center you will find there is a spider, and those are eggs, those are hanging upward. Another, the insect, they have the shelter beneath the leaf also, and you can have this, they keep their egg and larva develop in the thorns, those are joined. There are several such insects. Another thing is also there, like they are spittle bugs. They are also having a foam-like structure wherein they have their young ones inside it. Yeah, backbones you can say. Then of course plants, how they, if you see it carefully, you will also find the pupal stage that has been just over finished, and then butterflies have come out, and there is a mating going on with sickle senna on Cassia tora. Now, trees like Brittellia, Diospyros cordifolia, Maina lexiflora, they are all like local trees. They will have such spines. These spines also shows that the evolution, in evolution, they don't develop spine as such on the branches, but the main trunk also turn the branches on drying, turn into these spines. So they are very strong spines. Such trees, they are all 4-3 trees, and they have this type of structures. Even it is very confusing botany point of view to define and to understand it. It's a dried branch itself that have the point. At once upon a time, that branch will have the leaves on the tip of it. Now it has been reduced into the spine. So another habitat, that is forest habitat and bryophytes, those are utilizing whatever minerals and nutrients are available on the bark itself, and those bryophytes, I mean to say plants with having two bodies, only root system and the photosynthetic areas. They will also have even structures like in the next, or rather on the right side, you can see the spore bearing organs. Now again, evolution and the development coexistence of water birds, that is purple moraine is been seen with the Ipomia aquatica here, and in the backside you can find that typhi is also growing there. Very habitat specific, as I mentioned. This is the Pithocilobium dulce trunk, and the birds, or rather parakeet, those are there. Some of the trees growing naturally in western India, I have given only few. The list can go even more than 100. Those are common, I should say. But these trees, I have also tried to give their Hindi name. Gujarati name and Hindi names are there. I thought of giving it because these trees are belong to central India, and wherein Hindi is very common. And of course, Rajasthani, Gujarati, those languages are also understood. And even North Maharashtra, almost same vocabulary is there. And that is how I am giving this. They are all native trees, and with, of course, various purposes. As we know, we use it for our own kind of day-to-day life, as well as in ecosystem, they are very important. For that matter, if you see khajuri, and those are mentioned in the end, those are the palms, but they are forming the majority of the kind of dry areas. Even khajuri is indicator of underground water. Here I am talking about the, if you are bird observer, those who are birders here in this, they can or they should try to understand where they are looking at, because at various canopies, birds have various species of birds have preference to sit and spend the time. So majority of the time spent by certain species of birds, they will be shady area. Then they will never be seen on the peripheral area, that is lateral branching as I've shown, or even they will not be seen on the top somewhere where the heronries are taking place near water bodies. And birds of prey, they always sit in the top. So such type of concurrent or observations along with other species, whenever if you are interested in knowing the birds, try to understand what type of tree it is, what type of shrub it is that is being used by that bird, and where exactly most of the time of the life that bird is spending. So they are very specific. These are the habitat. I just want to show how the native trees are helping providing habitat to the birds. This is weaver bird. As you can see, entire colony in the khajuri plant. Phoenix sylvestris. This is oriole, golden oriole bird with the nest. This is building the nest where the branch coming out from the stem. It is very typical of them. A shikra bird and the nest in the Mitragaina parvifolia, that is kadam tree, actual kadam tree of Vrindavan. Sri Krishna ke saath juda hua. This is the heronry. I wanted to show how the bird heronries are preference of the canopy. And of course, these trees are like acacia or ficus species, or if it is in forest area, you will find jamun species, wild jamun species. So Syzygium hainianum, Syzygium rubicundum. So those are the species those we found in the forest areas, dry deciduous forest areas. Here I want to emphasize that I have seen such open bill stork nesting on the plants. This was near the railway track, very disturbed habitat one can say, but still you will find those birds there. And these are the names in Gujarati. Rato Sarasro is Shiris, then Neem, Nilgiri, Banyan, People, Black Shiris, Kalo Shiris, and then Pyre, that is Ficus virens, Bawar, Babul, and Imli, Amli. And the nesting material is very specific. These birds are very, smart birds. They prefer certain twigs only for nesting their say nest, because those nests are almost half a meter or even more than 1 meter tall. What they do, they just collect these type of twigs from Limdo, Gunda, Nilgiri. The Gunda is Cordia, Dicot, Neem, Nilgiri, Babul, and Imli. The twig of these plants or trees are very sturdy. If you see the wood, they will not get infection very quickly. So fungal infection is, Nilgiri is eucalyptus. Fungal infection is not occurring to these twigs. So they try to see that their nest will survive for longer time. And that is how you go on seeing that there is a piling up of such twigs one above another, and many times it goes up, in particularly in this bird, 1 meter height of that twig I have seen. So selection of nesting tree as well as material. Here are the cormorants. They occupy the ficus species most of the time. Here we can see there is multi-storied kind of concept also. The Tad or Boreopsis flabellifer tree, and then close up of it, it's a bird habitat. All over the trunk you will have and still the tree was living. It was not dead. These are all bird nests, and of course bat, those are hanging downward on the ficus. And then there are, to connect yourself, this is the example of it, how you will connect with the heritage trees is to have the observation in your urban areas. You can list them out, get their years approximate. These are all records that I have collected from my city, Baroda. Now these are the trees that I was talking about. You can see the canopy and grandeur of those. They are all occurring. Fortunately, they have not been touched by urban developmental activities, and they are there in our city or some private compounds like palace or even our public garden. This one is in at present in the news. If you can Google it, you will find that Adansonia digitata, one road is being passing nearby this tree, and we have shown our concerns as concerned citizens. We have put it to the collectorate office that road should be a bit away from that because it's a root zone area where they are planning the road. So this is being said as 950-year-old. After carbon dating study, it has appeared that this tree is that old. So several such heritage trees. I have even published my observation in 2009 in local news magazine as a small article, wherein I have recorded how many number of birds, various diversity. We can definitely have that. Such type of trees have to be taken care of. And then what citizens can do with the heritage trees or heritage areas that we have. We can safeguard our water system, lakes, our river. We can, of course, worry because this is what is happening when the authority comes across and they do some developmental work, or even in private houses also. We are often worried about our own compound wall, but we don't worry about the plant that is next to it and giving us, say, oxygen and every life supporting system. So we need to change our designs also many times, considering the growth of the tree. Of course, again, removing the soil all along the river bank, and then degradation or soil, say, siltation occurs in the river, and there is a flood. So these things are all connected. We need to have our green spaces and open spaces available for the vegetation and other biodiversity to prosper. So these are the connecting citizens with that of up Rakhi Bandh trees go. You can talk about the nature walk. We have very beautiful group over here in Baroda. I appeal to the audience, those who are interested in, they can also start in their own nature walk groups in their own city. They can try to reach out to such areas, try to identify trees and describe. आपके भी city के अंदर botanist होंगे, try to get botanists and zoologists in your group, and they will make you acquainted with the local diversity that you have. Several such activities, those are there. You can have your ghat restoration on the river. You can, citizen can do many things all together. Only the thing is you need to have a group formation first. Get the confidence, gain the confidence, and then you can lead or you can direct them, and then people can do wonders. This is the heritage trees being planted by our own Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad, and then tree is 150-year-old banyan tree. This banyan sapling he brought from the Sri Lanka, and it is growing in Baroda. We have several such references in nature walk we conduct, and we talk about how in Kalidas Raghuvansham he described about several such native trees, including our own Cassia fistula, Indian laburnum tree. He is also describing our Tadi. He has described tamarindus. He has described several such local trees, native trees, 1500 years back. This is all about the awareness and what type of habitat we had by lotus in our pond, and now it is coming up as this floating dangers of the plant, that is Ecornia. This is what I was to talk about. Then I have observation on one people tree right in the city area, a small people tree, around 30-35-year-old people tree. But then I have recorded 28 bird species on that. This has been published by Times of India. It is not that only bird, but there are other things also. So again, I would like to sum up like soil, hydrology, climate, plant evolution, animal evolution takes place at any given place. Then comes the ground vegetation. There is increase in soil root zone. That also, there is exchange of minerals and soil plants and plant roots. Then there is succession, soil moisture content, porosity of the soil are all related, and ultimately comes the trees and stability comes into the system. So this is how we have our forest. But it is not that only to safeguard our forest, we are going to check the climate change. No, we have to act locally. We have to safeguard our local native vegetation. I have talked about all this. Even dead tree, I wish to say that dead tree is also of very great support to run the ecosystem. If you just imagine, if there wouldn't be a tree, you are going to lose several such fungus those are growing on that dead wood, and there won't be any proper cycling of the forest soil. If you remove all the termites from the forest, I often say this to the nature work people. If you remove termites from the forest soil, there won't be forests at all, because termites are taken or eaten away by the ants. So ants by movement are, there is a lot of exchange of minerals in the soil. So porosity of the soil is maintained. Moment you have porosity, you will have more water to go into it. So that moisture, soil moisture is all about the forest diversity. So we have to understand this ecological, very intrinsic, very important, very fragile, say bonding between termite and that of ants and that of roots and then the forest and the soil. They're all interlinked, connected to each other. And this has happened over the period of say, selection, evolution. Everything have played for several such hundreds of years or thousands of years. And then we are able to see them now. We have not done anything of that. We have not done any single thing for the soil fertility. Okay, just remember that whatever soil is available around us is all nature has given us. We have not done anything to that. So we try to respect that and we try to respect this diversity. So and these are the things I have talked about. Urbanization has already changed our entire soil characteristic, plants diversity, and again that is being reflected into the insect. And we have rather made into the mess. Cities making them into the metros. So what we can do is we need to have this shrinking habitat जो है उसको संभालना है. We need to check our concretization. We need to have somewhere say no to the development, so-called development of concrete. So we need to ensure the ravines, riparian surfaces by not allowing any dumping on that. We need to keep those areas out of our, riverfront development and lake beautification part because those things are bringing all these alterations to our ecosystem, which are not wanted for the healthy ecosystem. It changes the water quality, it changes the soil surfaces also, and then there won't be any percolation in the rainwater. So rainwater harvesting is also being checked heavily by this concretized riparian surfaces, which are very otherwise important for ecosystem cycling. And whatever green native species are there, native trees are there, that we have to respect them. We have to keep those areas intact. We should not allow any monoculture of trees. We should not change our trees with that of planting palms, bringing from somewhere else. So we need to check all these things as a citizen, as a concerned citizen. And if we are really worried about sustainable development, we need to say no to these things. I hope you understood what I mean to say.